Hello and welcome. I'm Charlene Glover, the CEO of We Need a Village Again. We are better together, WNAVA. WNAVA is a social justice ministry, and we're proud to host this year's the Amaga Day 2024 Black History Program. We've entitled it Honoring Legends, Recognizing Contemporary Leaders, and Spotlighting Emerging History Makers. No one can tell the Black story like Black people, and no one can tell your personal story like you can. I am so delighted to have with us in this particular segment of our Black History program an honored guest, a special guest, Mr. Harry Dunn.
On this day, my role was as a Capitol Police officer. I'm Harry Dunn, and that meant putting aside who I am, a father, a Marylander, a Democrat, because I swore an oath to protect our Constitution, to protect our democracy. It's what allowed me to protect some members of Congress who I knew were bigots, who helped fan the flames that started all of this. I put country above self. The problem is, a lot of them didn't. Some of the same people who stood behind us when we protected them went back on the floor of Congress and stood behind Trump. They voted to acquit him. And worst of all, they denied the violence and trauma that led to the death of some of my fellow officers. I couldn't stand by and watch. I had another role to play. I used my voice to speak out, to get into good trouble. And a few weeks ago, I left the force after more than 15 years of service, so that today I can announce I'm running for Congress. We can't ever let this happen again. And you've heard it from Trump himself. He is hell-bent on finishing what he started this day. I'm stepping into a new role today, but I can't do it alone. I believe every one of us has a role to play in this fight. So join me. We've got a democracy to protect.
Again, we're so delighted to have with us former Capitol Police Officer, Mr. Harry Dunn. On January the 6th, Mr. Dunn defended our nation's leaders and the seat of our democracy. He's an American hero. In 2022, he was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. And on January 6, 2023, President Biden awarded him the Presidential Citizens Medal. He's an author of Standing My Ground, a New York bestseller, and he's recently launched his campaign for the Maryland Congress. I believe that we have one of the most appropriate guests for this particular Black History program. And although he would say he's a public servant, in the eyes of many, he's an American hero that's a public servant. Mr. Harry Dunn, thank you for being our guest. Would you greet our audience?
Hey, thanks, Charlene. Thank you so much for having me. Hey, everybody. I'm so honored to be here, and those are such kind words. I was sitting there listening when you were just listing those accolades, and I'm humbled, and I'm just a public servant. That's it. I'm a person. I'm a person who wants to see our country in the right direction, and I just believe in standing up for what's right. So it's kind of crazy to me that doing what's right gets you rewarded. Now I'm grateful, I appreciate it, but I wish more people did what was right, so doing the right thing would be considered the norm instead of being rewarded for it. But I'm really honored to be here talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I like that philosophy. Wouldn't it be nice if we all considered doing the right thing was just the right thing to do?
Yeah.
But you're here because you did the right thing, because it was the right thing to do in the face of great adversity. Let's just start by I have some questions I want to ask, and I have some comments I want to draw out of you because it's so appropriate for Black history. And I want to start with your book, Standing My Ground. In your book, you use some strong language to express how you felt in the heat of January 6th. But it appears that your experience has not made you bitter, but instead made you better. Talk a little bit about your personal experience, including how you're reconciling having been attacked in a place that you defended our nation's leaders and our democracy, a place that you said that you admire or revere because it was built by our ancestors, and then you experienced the verbal attack with racial slurs. How do you reconcile what you're doing, how you've continued to do what you're doing, and now you're moving forward for a bid in Congress, and you've been able to maintain your clarity in doing so?
Yeah, so that's a lot to unpack, but it's real though. It's real. You know, like let's start with being bitter. I'm not bitter. I'm kind of like, let's do something. Like I feel like if you're being bitter, you're focusing on being angry. Well, anger is fine. Anger is, I think, is a very valid emotion. It's warranted, but I want to my anger to drive me towards a purpose, and not just sit around consumed in my anger. And I think that is what we can call bitterness, consumed by your anger, just sitting in it and not doing anything with it. You know, I want the opportunity to make a difference. I mean, very, solutions based, solutions oriented. And, I don't want to just sit around and be angry. Like, all right, I'm mad. I'm upset. This happened. How do we fix it? What can be done about it? I love the phrase, until there's nothing that can be done, there's always something that can be done. So I'm looking for my next something to do. And running for Congress, there was an opportunity where one of the current congressmen that represents Maryland's 3rd District is retiring from Congress. And that creates an opportunity to get a seat at the table. And there's no guarantee that I'll win. But, it was funny when I was debating the whole process of whether I'm going to run or not, I was looking for reasons why I should not do this. Because who in their right mind runs for Congress? Like, who wants to be embedded in that world? But in looking for reasons not to, I continue to find reasons why I should do it. And I going back to me being solutions oriented, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do it. And I think that's what it comes down to. You have to stand on your principles. You have to stand on your morals. Find something that's bigger than yourself. Replace me and just let me continue to be a public servant, be a vessel, so to speak, for people who have ideas like me, who want to fight for this country, for this Constitution, for the democracy that we have. That's all I want to do, is to continue to fight and not empower people, because this is, selfishly, this is a personal thing for me. And like I said, if nobody supported me, I would still be doing it, because I'm standing on my morals, I'm standing on my conscience, and doing what I think that is right.
But I think that when you decide to be a public servant, you are other people conscious as well. So there may be some self-motivation, personal ambition, but you are obviously thinking about how you can serve other people.
No. Not when it comes. No, I agree with that when it comes to public service. But as far as like personal ambition, no, I respectfully and humbly, those things that you read about me, that wasn't ambition. That just came along because I did what I thought was right to do. So I don't think it's necessarily any personal ambition. I don't have that at all. A spirit of service is what it was ingrained in me as a young kid. My father is a retired military Air Force veteran, and I guess just seeing him, like I said, the idea of something bigger than yourself, that's entrenched in me. But what I meant, as far as not worried about what anybody else think, that's standing on my morals and my principles. Because like you're the one that has to live with yourself at the end of the day. And, God said, at the end of your life, you're going to be judged by the Heavenly Father. And I want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. And that's the only voice that's the only validation that I need, that I'm seeking. Anything else is just me standing on my morals and my principles.
Excellent. Well, there's nothing like a principle-centered man or a principle-centered person. How about that?
Let's go with that. I love it.
In your book, you open the book, and I think a number of people who have interviewed you started with this because it's so impactful, by defining trauma. And you said on January 6th, everyone was traumatized, whether we know it or not. And you define trauma, according to the dictionary, as deeply distressing or disturbing experience. As a Black man defending the Capitol in the heat of what could have cost you your life, do you think that the trauma perhaps you experienced was interpreted differently by non-Black officers? Maybe they didn't feel as threatened, or they didn't see their life potentially being taken. How do you see that? Was it just neutral for every person who was standing in the way of the MAGA crowd?
So I think that everybody, like I said, whether you were at the Capitol fighting in the midst of it on January 6th, or whether you were in, Augusta, Georgia, sitting in your apartment or your house, watching on TV in horror and disgust or disbelief because you couldn't believe what was happening, you were affected in some kind of capacity. The only difference in our traumas is where we were when we were experiencing it. When it comes to the Black officers, I think that our battle was different. But I won't say that I'm not minimizing in any capacity the trauma that my white counterparts faced that day. I don't think January 6th was a racist attack, and somebody might look at me and be crazy. How could you not say that? You didn't. No, those people that were there, those terrorists that day,
yes,
they beat the hell out of my white coworkers, my Black coworkers, my Spanish coworkers. They didn't care. Anybody that was in their way was a threat to them, and they attacked them savagely and viciously. So that's what I mean when I say I don't believe that it was racist based. However, when they did see Black officers, they reminded us that they knew we were Black, and that, with the insults of the racial slurs and everything in that capacity. So I think it was a different battle that day. So while we got, they called officers, traitors, no matter who they were, but the N-word was created as a weapon, and and they used that weapon in addition to the flag poles, to the pepper spray, to the baseball bats, to the riot shields, and they used words too that day. And a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people in the Black community understand what that word meant, and that was just a different battle that we had to fight that day.
Wow, that's powerful. Going away from there, you've talked about therapy, so on and so forth, but it seems like one of the powers that you have is that you've been able to talk about it. And so I'm sure every time you talk about it, it perhaps help you work through the emotion of it, or maybe the strength of the pain lessens because you're not bottled up on the inside. Are you able to help some of your fellow officers just in talking it out, giving them a safe place to express their pain and anguish from January 6th?
A lot of people, whether it's an officer, whether it's, one of my colleagues, a lot of people deal with their trauma like out of sight, out of mind. So a lot of people don't like talking about it. I'm one of them individuals that ain't going to shut up. I got something to say. And like I said, I don't care if I'm talking to this wall. I'm going to say what I got to say. Mm-hmm. And, especially when individuals are saying the opposite or trying to lie about what actually happened that day, I'm for sure going to speak up. And I encourage, my story is my story. If you could ask 100 different officers from the Capitol Police, from the Metropolitan Police Department, what happened on January 6th, and you'll get 100 different answers. I don't pretend to speak for any and everybody. I saw what I saw. I went through what I went through, and that's the way I felt the way our country was attacked. But I encourage everybody to speak out. Some people deal with stuff in silence. Honestly, some people aren't bothered at all by it. Some people don't see January. It's a big deal. Even people that may have been there. That's fine, but that ain't me. I respect the way you grieve, or the way some people cry when they lose a loved one. Some people, laugh and celebrate when they lose a loved one. Like, it's everybody grieves, handles stress and events differently. So I don't think my way is better than anybody else's, but I just look at, like I said, being solutions oriented. And this is the best way for me to grieve, to cope, and to get my message across, and to make a change.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you're doing an excellent job, because there's nothing like a firsthand story. And as I've begun to read through your book, you tell, even to the point of being grilled by your attorneys to prepare for the defense and all of that. So you've from the beginning of January 6th all the way through 3 years now, you've been walking through this process, but you have made it reachable and comprehensible for people who have heard all of the various media stories. It was a peaceful protest. It was, different people groups, so on and so forth. But you're telling the story from a firsthand, your experience. But you're not just telling the story to tell the story. You're letting us get an inside look at what the peril that our democracy is also in. And I think that's very noble.
And also giving thank you. And also giving a history moment. Like, this is
Yes.
one of the darkest days in our history. And especially, like you said, when you have people out there, like you said, saying it was a tour, or saying it wasn't a big deal. We don't want that to be in the history books. We don't want those lies to be in the history books. And, when you have an opportunity to set the record straight, so to speak, you better stand up and be quiet. I mean, and speak out and not be quiet. History remembers the winners, and that's unfortunate, but the winners get to write history. And one thankful thing is the good guys won that day. As ugly as it was, the democracy still stands.
Yes.
For now.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for being a part of that. Let me ask you this. What is it that you could say, having been a first-hand experience, a person experiencing the brutal attack of the insurrection on the seat of our capital? What would you say to the American people who have heard various news streams, may not know what to believe? What would you say to speak to their consciousness, to say, we are in an urgent hour. This is urgent. This hour is urgent.
I don't know how gentle I could be with somebody who doesn't know what to believe. And I say that with as much compassion as I could possibly say it, because we all saw what we saw on that day. And if you choose to believe something else than what you saw, then respectfully, it's willful ignorance to me. Because there's no the whether we call it somebody, the former president was being set up, or this and that, the violence and the brutality that was on TV, on display, on national television for everybody to see, wasn't made up. The individuals chanting "Stop the Steal," that wasn't made up. They breaching the Capitol and marching through it and desecrating it, that wasn't made up. The chants of "Hang Mike Pence," they were going to shoot Nancy Pelosi in the head, that wasn't made up. So respectfully, if anybody is not seeing that, I view it as willful ignorance, because we know what we saw, and we just need to keep on hammering it home and pushing back against the people who are insisting that it wasn't that big of a deal.
Awesome. I read in your book how you deterred some of the mobsters from one of the officers and perhaps one of the legislators, while you saw them go and get people out of, I think, Nancy Pelosi's office. And there was this big sign over her door, but they didn't seem to see that. Did I understand that the mobsters didn't necessarily recognize the location they were in looking for her?
See, that's what I don't see. I don't know what was going on in their head. The Capitol is huge, and I'll take this sidebar to say that it's such a amazing building. I worked there for 15 plus years, And every day I would make it a mission of mine to walk through and try to see something new, a new crack in this old a stone or something. That building was built by slaves, and then come full circle centuries later, I have the honor and the duty to protect what my ancestors created. And it was just like, you talk about a full circle moment. Like, my God. Um, so that was just a little sidebar, just my adoration of the Capitol building, and our great ancestors that created that building against
Mhm.
their will as slaves.
Yes.
Um, but to go back to that, I don't know if people knew where they were doing. I think a lot of individuals, there may be, like I said, there were a few individuals that were there with the intent to take over the government, and a lot of other people there were in unorganized chaos. And I think that's where majority of the people fell that day. So that's why I don't think that's why that many people weren't charged with seditious conspiracy. It was a few that were, because they had plans to overtake and overthrow the government that the Justice Department did uncover. But I think a lot of the people there were just part of the mob, so to
Yeah.
speak. And whether they knew or whether they didn't know, they knew that entering the Capitol and fighting the police was wrong, and they didn't leave when we told them to leave. So that's the problem. That's the issue right there.
Excellent. Well, let me, in light of your admiration for that magnificent structure that was built by our ancestors, what would you say, just looking straight ahead to the audience, and in particularly to Black people, African American people, what would you say to Black people about getting involved, becoming engaged, being informed properly, not on social media, but really being informed so that we can be a part of the decision making, lawmaking process in this nation about how things are handled with
You
our.
know, yeah, that's great, and that's a deep and heavy question. I actually feel like we could have a whole just segment about this, but I think that one of the issues is Black people and women, um, people of color, their existence in this country started under oppression. Like our existence started at that. So we're rooted. The foundation of the existence of Black people in America was rooted in oppression. So I think it's easy, and this sucks, easy to fall back into being an oppressed mind state, because there's so much stuff. We made strides, we made leaps and bounds, we have freedoms, right? I mean, I think that I saw a report that even with women, they're still making 81 cents to the dollar. Don't quote me on that exact number, but I know it's not a dollar for dollar.
Dollar for
Women,
dollar. Yes.
no, it's not a dollar for dollar. So we still got a lot of strides to make. But I say that, I bring that up to say I understand that it's easy to just succumb to to being oppressed. It's easy to succumb to it, because standing up for it means you have to fight. You have to be willing to get a couple scrapes, get a couple cuts, get a couple bruises, because you're already fighting an uphill battle.
Yes.
But damn, it's worth it though. It's
Yeah.
worth it. And I
Say that
think
again.
that's
It's worth it. It's
worth
worth
it.
it.
That's what it is. That's why, because it's worth it. You know, I wish I had a magic anecdote, to say, to get people to care, to get involved, but it's just worth it to know that you deserve it, and you're fighting for it, not
Yeah.
just laying down accepting what is given to you. Go out
Good.
there and take what we deserve.
You're so good at articulating just this whole experience. I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to give you some keywords, and all you
Okay.
get to say is one word to define
Uh-oh.
it, or one phrase. How about that?
Okay. All right. Let's see what we can do. This
Black
will
in
be fun.
America.
This will be fun.
Yeah, Black in America.
Dangerous but fun.
Dangerous but fun. Donald J. Trump.
Toxic.
Toxic. Character.
character. The first thing that came to my mind is morals, right?
Morals.
But I don't like the way that fits though.
It's who you
Come
are.
back to me when we
I'll
got
come
another
back
one.
to
Let me
that
think
one.
about that one.
Truth. Because you seem to be a truth teller. I love your plain, straightforward speech.
Necessary.
Necessary. Accountability. That's one of the reasons you wrote your book too.
Elusive.
Elusive. Wow. Very true. Good trouble.
I like that. I have a tattoo, a good trouble tattoo.
I saw that. I saw
John
your
Lewis. John Lewis.
excellent, excellent character.
Lacking.
That's most appropriate in the hour we're in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so recently I happened to hear a prominent celebrity who's a sports person make light of Donald Trump's character and behavior, and he said Donald Trump's all right with me. He just needs to learn how to talk. And then I heard another entertainer, according to Entertainer Weekly, who was Snoop Dogg, and he said, I have nothing but love and respect for Donald Trump. And he was referencing the fact that Mr. Trump pardoned one of his associates. How do you square that, having had the experience now that you've had, not just on January 6th, but even in subsequent years now where people have defamed and have twisted the truth about January 6th and what's really happening in this nation?
Yeah.
How do you square that with people giving those kinds of casual, irresponsible, they have a right to their opinion, but to say that and put that out publicly, I think is a little reckless.
Willful ignorance.
Willful ignorance.
That's what that is. If you can, or you lacking those morals, that character that we just talked about. We just talked about character, right?
Yeah.
Lacking. So you're lacking the character to say that an individual facing 91 felonies is okay with you. So one, you're willfully ignorant, or if that's not the case, or you are aware of it, that means that you're lacking the character, the moral character, the moral clarity. That a lot of us are. And I struggle with that because people are allowed, which is crazy though, not being hypocritical, people have the right to have those morals. We all don't live by the same morals and principles. We want everybody to be decent human beings, but I think we need to realize we all ain't decent human beings. And no matter what, everybody won't be. And I think that's the most disappointing things. We disappoint ourselves because we want people to live like we do. And Snoop Dogg's entitled to his opinion. I don't think highly of him now based off of, obviously a couple, those, especially based off of those comments. He's entitled to them though. But that just shows me, one, he's willfully ignorant, or two, the character of Donald Trump doesn't matter to him. So one of those two things is true.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue because I want you with that. I made up a word, celebrityism.
Oh, okay.
I want you to define the difference in celebrity speech, celebrityism speech, and activism speech, because there's, in my mind, based on what you just said, a very different way of seeing things when you speak out when you're a celebrity versus an activist.
I think a lot of times celebrities don't realize the influence that they have. I don't think people seek out to be a celebrity to be an activist. Activism, I don't think people are doing it to be a celebrity. They're doing it because they care and want to see a change. I think that's where we get in trouble, where we put celebrities on this pedestal. You need to see the actual intent of a person. And I feel like that's where you'll be able to determine celebrity or activist. I think it's possible for both things to be true, but I just think we glorify celebrities. And you know what? That's fine because they have influence, and we need influence. We need influential people to make a stand against issues, oppressive issues, individuals that are marginalized, that's great. Um, but that goes back to the thing. We can't expect them to everybody, celebrity or not, they're all human beings. We can't expect everybody to live by the same principles and values that we do. I mean, you and me, Ms. Glover, we probably have some different principles or values, but I think that aligned at the core of it, we're aligned. We have the same goal in mind. Now, the difference is how we might travel to get there. You know, like this speaking of Black history, let's talk about the narrative that the Black Panthers got. You know, some people would say, Black Panthers, and this I found out a lot of this to be true, false information. Once you're doing your research and everything. But the old false approach with Black Panthers, well, burn it down then. If they ain't gonna do it, well, burn it down. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't agree with that, buddy. Like, I'm not gonna work towards something. No, that's not me. But different people took different approaches to get to different things. So you can still have different values and morals, but ultimately want to end up at the same finish line.
Yeah, I think, thank you for that. I think when you, as an activist, most people, I'm thinking about your role model, Good Trouble, Representative John Lewis. He always, from a young man, he was deeply touched by activism and the civil rights movement, and he dedicated his life to it. And everything that we can see that he did was to better his community. It was to make way for people to break oppression, systematic oppression, systems that were put in place to block and stop people from progressing, and Black people in particularly. And in my mind, he's not the celebrity, but God knows he's revered and honored because of the sacrifice that he made personally. So sometimes celebrities are thinking about themselves and the benefit that they have in their sphere of space. But as activists, I believe activists are always thinking about the end goal for everybody that they can influence for the good. And you fit that category. So you're welcome. We're about to wrap that up. But I want to ask you maybe one other two questions. What has inspired you to have such remarkable courage to step forth and actively participate? I know you said you're solutions oriented, but something deep inside of you and those values and principles must inspire your courage to know what could come along with taking that bold public stance.
Because I don't know if I could live with myself if I didn't do it, if I didn't speak up. If you're walking home and you see, a grandmother or elderly person getting robbed or attacked by a group of young men, you just sit there and watch, just say, dang, that's terrible. This is the world we live in. Or do you step up and engage to the best of your abilities? And me speaking out, I can do that. Me saying, hey, Donald Trump was wrong, I can do that. That doesn't require a lot. To me, it doesn't. You do what you can do. You do what you're capable of. Do it to the best of your abilities to be engaged, to be involved. And you know what? Some people being engaged, being involved is just, I got so much mail and letters of encouragement from people. And you know what? That's their way of being involved. They sent me a letter. Officer Dunn, keep going. I'm so proud of you. I'm praying for you.
Great.
That's doing something.
Yes.
It may seem irrelevant or small,
I think that's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. It's encouraging. Like I said, I would be doing this whether I got any support or not. But I tell you what, the support make it a lot easier. It's making it a lot easier because that making me say, all right, I'm not crazy. Everybody, good. Okay, good.
Yes.
Do what you can do. Do what you're capable of. Don't try to do above and beyond. Do what you can do.
That's great.
And then once you've accomplished that, find something else to do.
And do what you can do, right?
Do what you can do again,
Well, listen, as we're wrapping up, as you're successful in your run for Congress,
I pray
you will be too. What would be your key priorities and policy areas that you want to focus on?
I'm glad that you asked. So I'm a Democrat. I align with democratic values. I I like the idea of common sense, whether that applies to gun reform or I believe in a woman's right to choose. I believe in expanding and securing voting rights, lowering healthcare costs. Um, I believe in
Oh, you've
those
been
things.
practicing already. You got
No,
it all.
no, that's not even
I'm
practicing.
just kidding. I'm just
I
kidding.
know, I know. But I care. Those things. I have family. I have sisters. I have a daughter. I have a mother. So these issues they affect me. They should affect everybody.
Yes.
Um, but as far as a specific agenda, that's not my I don't think a lawmaker should have specific agendas when they go to Congress until you talk to your constituents and ask them what they want. Because if you're really there for the right reason to give a voice to the constituents that you represent, then that's your agenda. My agenda is to listen to the people of the Maryland's Congressional 3rd District and tell me what you want me to fight for. Because I'm already going in there, like I said, I have democratic principles and values. That's where my morals are leading me. So I'm going to fight for that. But if we're talking about we need more federal funding for roads, we need more federal funding for the local police departments or schools or after school programs, lowering the cost of childcare. That's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to fight for. Whatever's important to you is important to me.
That's very good. Very good. Well, the time is up. Can you believe that? This has been such a delightful interview.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your extraordinary service to our Capitol personnel, to the seat of our democracy. And thank you for being one of our kickoff guests for the Omega Day Black History program. I want to close by saying, Mr. Harry Dunn, a public servant and an American hero, you are. You stood up and decided to fight against what was putting our nation, our capital, our democracy in peril. And though you stood to fight for that, we fought and not had victories, but you fought and you showed that fighting for and fighting with is important because we're one nation. And if we come together collectively, and
Yeah.
so you were outnumbered, you and your fellow officers were outnumbered, but you gave them heck
That's right.
to hold fast to that process, and we appreciate it. So I want to say, keep standing your ground for your community and for our country. You epitomize Black brilliance and Black resilience at its finest, and we're so thankful that you took time to be with us in our Black History program.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here, and what a great conversation. I'm so thankful for you indulging me in this great conversation, and I'm just humbled to be here. Thank you so much, and to everybody listening, thank you. All the love to you. That's a heart.
Yeah,
My
all
hands are
the
real big, though.
all the love. Well, if you don't mind, let me just say a prayer for you and Officer Fanone and all of those that are still working through this process. So, Lord God, we thank you for Mr. Harry Dunn. Harry Dunn is what they call him, but I say Mr. Harry Dunn. Thank you for Officer Fanone. Thank you for all of the officers that are still being healed and restored. For those families that are still grieving, Lord, comfort, strengthen, and let good come out of evil. Let light come out of darkness. Lord, guide Harry as he moves forward for a congressional seat. Give him wisdom. Teach him the way that is right to be the best servant leader to the people that he will lead. Thank you for his family. We bless you for this man and this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All righty. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. God bless you. We wish you the best, and we'll keep in touch with just watching the news because we're sure we'll see your face again.
Thank you so much, y'all. Be
You're
well.
welcome. God bless.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye.
We want to encourage you to get a copy of Harry Dunn's new book, Standing My Ground, A Capitol Police Officer's Fight for Accountability and Good Trouble after January 6th. And if you so desire, we want to invite you to visit harrydunn4congress.com to learn more about his run for congressional seat in Maryland and also how you can support him. His book is available at amazon.com. You will get a firsthand account from this plain-spoken, straightforward man who's standing his ground for democracy. Thank you for being a part of our program this evening.